Hi everyone, Carol here at Oak House Journals. Thank you so much for joining me today. I thought I'd just share with you what I've been up to this afternoon. But before I do that, can I say a very warm welcome to the new subscribers that have joined me since my last video. Hello and welcome. And to my existing subscribers, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining me again. And as always, thank you for your lovely encouragement and support. It really does mean the world to me. So today I've been making these tags. Well, I've been making a few more, but I'll start off with these. And it all materialized, I suppose, or I acquired the inspiration from this little piece of lamination that I received recently. And it's just some threads with a little bit of tatting. There's a petal in here, there's a piece of fabric and couple of pieces of paper, and it reminded me very much of the acetate specimen tags that I love making using the ferns out of my garden. So I thought I'd give it a go and try using some fabrics and threads and see what I created. So what I did first off was we have a laminator at home, and I used these laminating pouches. Now, I just got these off Amazon. We've had them a while. We use them in our laminator, but I'm not particularly advocating you go out and buy these. I'm not saying they're the best on the market or anything like that. These are just purely what we had at home and I decided to use. And when you open them up, they look like this. Now I'm hoping they're slightly larger than A4, and they are hinged, or they're folded at one end. So all I did, let me pop these tags to one side. All I did was get hold of some Avril twine that I have. I bought this recently off Etsy, and I'm using it in another project that's ongoing at the moment, and I really love this stuff. As you can see, there's 5 or 6 threads, gorgeous colours, various thicknesses. In fact, I've used, what I tend to do is I tend to split it and use some of the threads and not others. This one's got 4 there, but I know that there's 6 because further down there's that tiny little gold thread in this one. So I've obviously used it. Yeah, there's another one coming into play here. That's a slight, it's called flag yarn, this, and it's got a slight pink hue to it. So I've been playing with this green one, and I've also been playing with this pink one. And again, this one's got 5 or 6 beautiful threads that you can separate and use individually, or in various combinations, or all together. And what I did was I just got a massive handful of this. I just rolled it up in my hand and just snipped it with a pair of scissors into a bowl. And then what I did was I opened up my laminate sheet. When I can open it up. Well, anyway, I opened it up and I completely covered all one side of my laminate sheet with the snipped pieces of Avril yarn. I also had some vintage tissue paper in the right shades of pink, and I decided to snip and pull away some of those pieces. Then I covered up my fibres and I put it through the laminator. Now, can I just say before we go any further, obviously these laminators are not designed for this sort of project, so beware. I was very cautious when I did it the first time because I wasn't sure whether things were going to catch fire or what was going to happen. but it came out the other side and it was absolutely perfect. That doesn't mean to say I didn't have a mishap, because my laminator clearly says put the folded edge in first, and I decided that I would put the other edge in first on my second run or second attempt at doing this. And I then had to spend the next hour and a half dismantling my laminator, unscrewing it, getting in there in amongst the gubbings to work to get that sheet out, because it was just going round and round the roller. So yeah, and in the immortal words of Nick the Booksmith, I am not your mum, but please be very, very careful when you're doing this, to make sure that your machine is going to cope with what you're asking it to do. Mine did, but that was more by luck than anything else. So, as I said, I fed this through my laminator with my threads, and it came out like this. Now, this is all I have left from that first sheet, and as you can see, there's all my threads there, and there are some tiny, tiny pieces of tissue paper. There you go, that's a piece of the tissue paper, the darker colour. And because I had put my threads all the way over the sheet and then sent it through, it came out quite puffy. And so when I then cut my tags, I did get a little bit of fluff coming through my edges. Now, it had sealed, but I still got some fluff coming through them, and I think you can probably just pick it up on that edge there. Now, there is a way round that, which I'll tell you about in a moment. So all I did then was I chopped up my laminated piece of threads and tissue paper and created these tags. And as you can see through them. I put a bit of lace down the side here. I love stitching acetate, so I thought, well, I'll try stitching the laminate, and it stitched really, really well, and I love how it came out. I really do. As I say, I've just put some lace down the side of that one. I've done a safety pin on the top of that one, and again you can see through it. And then this one, I put a piece of all the threads in. This was when I did my second run. This time I put all my Avril threads, snipped Avril threads, on the laminating sheet, and then I laid on top a piece of lace. So that piece of lace is trapped in there with the threads. And then all I did was I cut it out into a tag shape and stitched it. So those are the 3 tags I made, and then these are just some little extra bits and bobs that I had left over. So I did a long tag here. I glued a piece of ribbon down and just put some tiny, tiny little flowers on the top, but no change from the earlier tags. This one I put a couple of layers of some fine chiffon sari silk down the centre and glued on some little flowers. But again, still the same process. This is another piece of the one where I had some lace, and that's trapped inside, and this time I made just a little journaling card, and I stitched a couple of layers of that chiffon and then put some lace snippets on a pin at the top there. It's not a pin actually. Well, it was a bulb pin, but I snipped it and used it as a jump ring. And then there are these tiny, I was determined to use every tiny, tiny little scrap of what I laminated. So I had these 3 little pieces left over, and I decided I'd make some more tags. So this one's got some lace and a little tiny piece of the chiffon, and I've just hand stitched some tiny little seed beads on the knot at the top. And then similarly with this one had just again another snippet of sari silk or sari chiffon. In the fold I put a tiny little flower with a half seed pearl and then some seed beads again, which I stitched on, and then this one, some lace on the bottom, slightly thicker lace on the bottom, and that tiny little snippet from some lace. So those were all from my first and second pass at laminating. And then I decided I would try doing something a little bit different on my next pass. This is again one where I layered up the lace with some of the Avril twine, but this time, rather than cover my whole sheet, what I did was I got one of my tags and I laid it down flat. Then I put my laminating sheet on top, and then using the tag that's underneath as my guide, I laid my piece of lace, which was cut to size to mimic the tag, and then I put my Avril twine on top. Now the difference between how I did this one and how I did all the pink ones was that none of it went past the shape of my tag, so my edges are completely sealed, and they give me, or that way of doing it gives you a very, very neat edge. You don't get any of the fluffiness that I had on the pink tag. So that's how I did this tag, but it's the same process more or less as before, the lace and then the Avril twine dotted on top. Then I decided I would have a go, and I would actually put, instead of putting my tag underneath my laminate, I put it inside, and this time I used my tag inside, then my lace, then my Avril twine, and again none of it went off the edge of the tag, and I created this one, and I really love how this one turned out. Much better than all the others. This is my little favourite. I absolutely love how this turned out. And your piece of card is obviously laminated with everything else. Now, when I lifted it out and before I started to sew it, obviously the back of my card was the laminating plastic and the pale green of the card, which you can just see through there. Now I didn't like that look. It looked a little bit plasticky to me. So what I then decided to do was I got some tea stained paper, and I just did a little collage and glued it on the back. And that makes a really sturdy, I mean, these are sturdy, obviously. They're more flexible, as you can see. They're not going to come apart. They're laminated and they're stitched. They're well and truly in place. But this one is like a true journaling card, and I just love that. I really do. And the good thing I found about the laminating pouches is that they are very easy to adhere lace to. All I used was the basic art glitter glue. I didn't use Fabri-Tac, I just used art glitter glue, and I just put it all over the, well, if I'm doing the back, I just put it all over the back and then put my tea stain paper on and trimmed it to size, and then did the collage on it. And with this lace, rather than use the fine tip nozzle to try and get some glue all on the back of this quite beautiful lace that I was gifted by Leanne. Thank you so much, Leanne. Can you see I'm making really good use of all the lovely lace you sent me? Rather than try and put the glue on the back of the lace, I actually put it on the laminate, and that worked really, really well. So this gives, doing it this way, where there is no Avril yarn going beyond the edge of my tag shapes, gives you a much nicer, crisper edge, and I like that a lot better. And then obviously I couldn't stop there. I was having so much fun, I really was. I decided that I would do a couple of different style ones. So here I've used some vintage paper that I've just roughly torn into a tag shape, and then I used some lace. I had a little bit of this wide lace left over. So this is the front side, and I've just put some dangles on a ball chain, and if I flip it over, that's the reverse. So the whole of the back of the tag has this lace on, and then a strip down the side here, and then the laminate put on top. So I quite like how that came out. And obviously, if you don't like this kind of look where you can see through it, where you're, as you can see where my hand is, you could obviously back this with some tea stained paper if you wanted to, but I quite like it. I noticed that under the lights in here in my craft room, this is looking very, very shiny, but actually it isn't, and there's lots of texture to this, because obviously this paper is picking up the dimension from the lace behind. But no, I really don't like shiny and blingy, and it isn't coming through. It's coming through on the camera a lot shinier than it actually is. I think it's, as I say, because it's underneath the lights. So that was the first one, and then this one I used some vintage Japanese paper, and this paper is very, very fine. It's almost transparent anyway, and I just layered it up. The piece of Japanese paper goes all the way across the back, and then I just layered it up with a little piece of mesh, which was the trimming off this lace. As you can see, it's the same. So this pattern kind of runs out, and there's about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of this very, very fine mesh. So I just put a little bit in there to soften the edge, and then use some more of this vintage English document, and then stitched round it after I laminated it, and then tied some twine, hemp twine at the top here. And then these are some little bezels that I bought off Amazon, and they were a little bit of a mistake, because when they arrived they had no hole in them. I'm not quite sure what you were supposed to do with them. I thought they would have something that I could hang them with, or thread a jump ring through, but I soon found that actually what I could do was punch them with my crocodile and make a hole, and that's what I've done. So I've just put a piece of vintage French text in there and a layer of glossy accents on the top. The domes for these, I can never remember the name of them. Cabochons. Sorry, I can't pronounce the name. Are glass, and they're very dimensionalized. So I've just used some glossy accents on these. So I just thought I would share that with you. As I say, if you decide to have a go, please be careful with your laminators. As I say, I spent a good 1.5 hours trying to sort mine out this afternoon, and I'm pleased to say it survived, but that was my own fault for not following the instructions. But it seemed to take the Avril twine and the lace and the tissue paper quite comfortably, going through the rollers inside the laminating pouches. So there we have it, everybody. Thank you so much for letting me share what I've been playing with today, and I hope you find it informative, and I hope you decide you're going to give it a go. Take care, everybody, and as I say, have a lovely, lovely weekend, and I hope you still find plenty of time for crafting. Take care, everybody. Bye.